Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please remember to subscribe. And if you're listening online, please do follow us on Spotify, Apple, and wherever else. Now, my internet has not been great for 8 or 9 months. Thank you very much, Virgin Media. So I'm not too sure how long this will survive, but we'll go as far as we can. It's been a long old time, hasn't it? Been since we last met. Done a couple of interviews recently about Jesus Rodriguez and various Dutch players that we have been linked with through the press. However, if you were to look across June, what would you say? Well, very little's happened. Nothing's happened. It's the great silence. It's like being in the middle of a desert and you don't hear anything but the wind. So part of the reason that I've not really done much this month is because, well, nothing's happening. So we're closing in now on the end of the PSR window. So what do we all think about that? Well, I can see a few people are joining online. Hopefully the numbers will build up. We shall see. But if there's any comments, please do let us know what you think. But PSR-wise, so various numbers have been thrown around. 75 million quid by one journalist who's clearly absolutely wrong, and 15 million from the Athletic. The fact of the matter is, no one knows. I would hazard a guess that the Athletic are a lot closer to the real figure, but we just don't know. And the fact that there's very little noise coming out of Aston Villa would suggest that there's not too much worry about this deadline, and maybe the John Duran sale and maybe a couple of sales towards in July last year have helped cover whatever it is that we need to get covered. Now, the Athletic have reported as well about Villa potentially following Chelsea's lead and selling the women's team. Now, I have heard this through decent sources myself. Just like I heard about the Morgan Rogers thing before it came out. I was quite surprised when it did come out because I sort of didn't really believe it. But no, it turns out there was a reality to it. The women's team, look, I think if you can... I think, if you look at Chelsea and see what they've done, well, if they can get away with it, Aston Villa, we don't have the advantages that the so-called Big Six have when it comes to revenues. Quite frankly, you can't break into the Big Six or into the upper echelons of the table without spending. And sometimes you have to spend beyond your means in order to, get as good as you can get. So I can understand why Villa might do what Chelsea have done. I mean, if they can if Chelsea seem to get away with it, well, it just makes a farce of the whole PSR ruling, really, doesn't it? And essentially, if Villa can, if Villa can do what Chelsea did in the sense when Chelsea found Alexis Ohanian, husband of Serena Williams, the founder of Reddit, he's now an investor in the women's team, and I think that if Villa can find a potential third-party investor and they therefore spend a certain amount, that then gives a fair value, which Aston Villa can then sell the team for. And I would dare say that what the Athletic reported, Jacob Tanswell and Greg Evans, is absolutely correct. And, Jacob Tanswell and Greg Evans are fantastic journalists and more often than not are correct on what they report. So, yes, I would say there's something to that. Whether that happens in the July and therefore counts towards next season, we shall see, because next season is the last year, supposedly, of PSR, and then we move into SCR. Now, SCR, squad cost ratio, Aston Villa, again, with our wages, we are not in great shape with that, which is why some players are probably going to have to go. Now, it might not be as bad as the 97% figure I've seen quoted around, only because Aston Villa's revenues will have gone up within the last year. God, I can't believe we're having to talk about this kind of stuff as football fans. Who cares? Well, you just want to talk about football, don't you? But unfortunately, we have to talk about this stuff. Yes, squad cost ratio. Hopefully, Villa's revenues will have gone up. Well, they will have gone up, won't they? The last year because of the Champions League and the various things that they've done off the pitch to increase those revenues. We then have the warehouse coming supposedly within the next month, isn't it? July, I think, was what I saw quoted. Whether that's ready for next season, we shall see. Infrastructure projects often are delayed. Just look at HS2. God only knows when that's going to be ready. Maybe my grandkids will one day enjoy going on it if I ever have grandkids or great grandkids. But yeah, the warehouse, whether that is in itself is something, Chelsea sold hotels to itself. Is that something Aston Villa might also look at selling to itself in the next year? I don't like it. I don't like the way. I do not like the way Chelsea have operated. I don't think most people do, but in the end, clubs that have built-in advantages already that Chelsea have, for instance, with with its revenues and PSR rule, the PSR FFP rules coming in arbitrarily when they did, and therefore did give great advantage to teams who already have the higher revenues, and teams like Aston Villa and, let's face it, Newcastle. If they do want to spend and get into those upper echelons, they kind of have to push it as far as they can. And obviously they have to get smarter off the pitch as well, but they also have to get smarter with how they operate as a club all round. And I think Aston Villa have, in fairness. I think one of the best things Purslow did, now I blame Purslow for a lot of bad things happening right now, but one of the best things he did do was investment in the youth system when he first came in. I've repeated this over and over again. There's probably people yawning and looking at their watches and whatever else with me saying this who've heard me say it before. But, Aston Villa focused on that youth team. They essentially emulated what Chelsea and Man City have been absolutely exceptional at. Tried to get in some of the best youth talent in the country. And then a lot of that youth talent, some of it has gone on for 20 million, Carney Chukwuemeka and Omari Kellyman. Some of it, Finn Azaz went to Middlesbrough, what was it, 3 million? And if you can keep building up, 3 millions, 7 millions, 10 millions, 12 millions, 20 millions, if you can build that up over time, it adds up to, what could it be? 1 year, it could be 70 million for a bunch of sales for players that barely ever featured for Villa. So it makes sense. That's how Chelsea and Man City have been doing it. And in fairness, that is quite smart. You can't criticize them for that at all. It's good on them, really. But Aston Villa, I think we've done better than Newcastle have with our youth system, probably. I think that's a fair shout. And I think Villa as well have become an elite club in the sense how we operate with our women's team. I think all football teams should try and, you want football to be for everybody, and you want young girls to grow up and look at a women's team and think they can be part of that. They can one day, they can grow up as Aston Villa fans and dream of playing for Aston Villa. And we have now the outlet to do that. So hopefully the women's team as well is a sign that Aston Villa are a truly elite club all around. Now, it's just unfortunate that we are in a financial predicament that means that we can't really do the things that the teams, the so-called Big Six, can do. But look, hopefully we're getting there. And not getting Champions League was a big blow. I dare say Unai Emery's face at the end of the season, at the end of that Man United game, wasn't just his irritation with how that game went, but also irritation or kind of a realization that maybe this summer, this is me speculating here, of course, not saying this is what he was thinking, but, speculating that maybe looking ahead to this summer and thinking the certain signings we might have been able to make had we got Champions League that we now can't make. We're now having to operate in a slightly, different market. Ken M, hello, long time no see. Yeah, hello to you, Ken. Good to hear from you again. As I say, it's been a very quiet month for Villa, so there's not really a great deal to talk about. I am working on a pretty big non-football project, so hopefully that's going to be life-changing. Hopefully, fingers crossed, in a good way. Hopefully not in a bad way. And in a year's time, I'm begging everyone to send me a £5 for a cup of coffee. But working on something quite big. So no, but I was just walking around, sunshine and light, and getting a nice tan and sunburn on my nose. And I thought, I haven't done all Villa for a long, long time. So maybe I could sit down and just do a live show and try and talk about the squad, which I'm going to get onto in a second, and maybe just talk a little bit about where Villa are now. I don't know how you all feel about it. I'm with Villa. It's been nice not to talk too much about Villa in the last month. in the sense of, it becomes all consuming, particularly when you're doing a podcast about it, but we're all in the same boat, aren't we? We're all massive Aston Villa fans. We think about it a lot. And it has been nice to sort of not, football's been continuous. We had the World Cup the season before last, and then we had the Euros as well. It's just been non-stop football. I know we've got the Club World Cup, but I haven't really paid attention to it, to be honest. And then last season as well with Europe, with the number of games that Aston Villa had, as far as we went in the FA Cup and in the Champions League, it's what you want. Of course, it's what we want, but there's so much football. It's just so much of it. But it just gets to a point where you're like, there's only so much emotional energy you can invest in it, and then you're like, it's actually quite nice to just have a little bit of a timeout. And then when Villa come back, the transfer window does start to pick up in July, as I'm sure it will. And then in early August, when the games come back, and pre-season games happen in mid-July to early August, that's when the excitement can build again. So it's been nice to just take a little bit of a rest from it all, I guess. But I've had a little bit of a thought about the squad. So shall we get up a tactical pad and look at where the squad is? Now, I've not really used tactical pad for a fair while, so forgive me if I'm a little bit rusty doing all this, to be honest. But that is currently what Aston Villa squad looks like to all those listening. I'll try and put this out as an episode. Villa's squad, we've got a lot of left backs. Alex Moreno, Doniel Marlin, Luca Dean, Samuel Illing Jr. as well, if you could stick him there. You could also put Illing Jr. in that left-sided role where Jacob Ramsey is. But then, so that role is pretty well covered, and I think you can make one or two sales there as well. Left centre-back role, Tyrone Mings and Pau Torres. You'd hopefully Tyrone Mings is over those injury woes now. You'd look at that as two players who really contrast each other and offer something very, very different. So hopefully that's a role that you think, again, we're pretty well covered in. Right centre-back, Ezri Konsa. And that's it, really. Axel Disasi's gone back to Chelsea. So Villa are going to have to do something about that, for sure. Then the right-back role, Costa Nedeljkovic, who I rate very highly. We've never really given him much of a chance. When he did play in pre-season last year, he looked very, very good. I think you could see the raw ingredients. And there were games he played at the start of last season where I thought you could see the raw ingredients there. But we haven't yet seen, the very best of him just yet. And there were, naive moments. I was at the West Ham game at the very start of last season when he came on for 15 minutes and, that Ghanaian West Ham player's name's gone completely out of my head. Gave him the runaround anyway. So I could see why Emery had a little bit of mistrust within him, but I think, that's what young players are. They're learning as they go. And I think there's a lot there. And, by the end of his time at Leipzig, he was really starting to feature, but it looks like he's probably going to be off. So Alex Garcia, or Andres Garcia, sorry, and Matty Cash are our current two right backs, you would say. Mohamed Kudus says Aaron Morris. Yes, that is it. Aaron Morris with a comment here. Hi, Frankie. Well, not too much happening yet at Villa, and content must be a bit thin on the ground for you right now, but hopefully it'll get going next month. Maybe something to report then. Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I did 2 interviews recently. That's been the bread and butter of this channel, really, since we started it 4 years ago. It's just been, I've tried to do interviews. It's what I enjoy doing most of all, really, is talking to people, proper experts and getting their thoughts on it. It's pretty thin the last month, thin gruel. Oliver Twist ain't asking for too much more of it, but so that's the current our defensive positions at the moment. Then when you step into centre midfield, you've got Tielemans, McGinn, and Bogard. Then on the other side of it, you got, the DMs in Onana and Kamara, Branachea as well, and Ross Barkley. So Villa look pretty well stocked in the centre there. And you'd imagine one or two might be moving on. That would include, Bogard could potentially get sold. He's a pure profit player, isn't he? And then you've got Ross Barkley as well. I think he'll probably stick around. He doesn't cost too much. Branachea, been linked away a lot. Again, probably another player I think will probably go, even though He impressed at Valencia, and is certainly a player I think if he were given a chance next season at Villa, would probably look the part. But there's a lot to compete with there. McGinn, Tielemans, Anana, and Kamara. That ain't easy to beat or get through. So, and then you look on the left midfield area. It's only really Jacob Ramsey and Ealing Jr. if he comes back and doesn't go back on loan. And then you've got that right, sort of that second striker role we like to play. You could say that Morgan Rogers, again, is pretty much the only player there because, Sensio's gone, Rashford's gone. And then out on right mid, you've got Leon Bailey, and Leon Bailey looks like he's probably off as well. Strong links to Neom in Saudi Arabia. I do think his time is up at Villa. Doniel Marlin and Ollie Watkins as the two strikers. I think Doniel Marlin, yes, I think he'll probably be a striker next season. I think that's where Unai Emery's been putting him. Yes, he can play in that right mid role. I think he probably will have games where he plays there next season. But I think he's probably a backup striker to Ollie Watkins. I think he'll be in and out of the team. But, in fairness to him, from what he's done being in and out of the team, I think he's looked pretty impressive. I think he's a very, very handy player to have there. He's on big old wages from what I've heard. So, he's going to have to, on those sorts of wages, he's going to have to play a lot of football. But I think he will. I think he'll be a very effective player, particularly in the Europa League next season as well. Ollie Watkins, I think he's... Yes, those Arsenal links are still there. Yes, they've not bought Benjamin Sesko or Gyökeres from Sporting and Sesko from Leipzig. I think one of those two is probably the one that's going to go to Arsenal. But if Arsenal can't get either of those in, do they go back in for Watkins, and do Villa then sell Watkins at his peak and then, try and get in a player who can fill that role? It's a lot easier said than done. Not easy to find a player who can do what Watkins does. So we shall see. That is one I think to just keep an eye on. I more leaning towards thinking Watkins will stick around. But if Arsenal do come in with a big old bid, I think that's something definitely to look out for in July. Now, goalkeeper, that is the position that looks like it's going to go through the most change. Olsen obviously is off. Just going to take a sip of water. Joe Gouch has come back from his loan. I think he was in Belgium, wasn't he? And then Emi Martinez. Right. I think it's time to go. I just think it's time to go. I love Emi Martinez. I love that man. I would build a statue to him. I think he's probably Aston Villa's greatest ever goalkeeper. I think that's probably a fair shout. What other goalkeeper have we had that's been so consistently transformative and brilliant as him? I mean, you could go back to, Nigel Spink, Mark Bosnich. We've had some good Brad Friedel. We've had some really good ones over the years, but was it John Burridge as well? You go as far back as that. But I think Emi Martinez, World Cup winner, incredible, imposing presence, but just the noises coming out about movement. Fabrizio Romano has been talking about it a lot. Whatever you think of Romano, he is clearly very well connected, and you do wonder where those noises are coming from. Look, I would be delighted if Martinez stays. Of course I would. But just wonder whether it might suit both parties if he does go. And I've come to terms with it. I think if he ends up at Man United or Chelsea, I don't really care. It's weird, isn't it? I think a month ago I'd have been pretty fizzing about it, but I'm just sort of over it now. And I think that sometimes, if you sell players at their peak and their wages are off the books, and Aston Villa have to think long and hard about wages, and if we can replace them with a goalkeeper that is of a very good standard, very high standard. Look, we're probably not going to get a goalkeeper as good as Emi Martinez. It's just a fact. I mean, he's just a fact. He's just the world's number one. But if you can get, say, Lucas Chevalier, who is at Lille, I know we've been linked heavily with him. believe it or not, I do remember after watching Villa play Lille in the Conference League, literally saying on this podcast that I think that he'd be a really good player to to sign one day if Martinez were to go. Amazingly, that looks like it's something that could happen. So, not to bloody big myself up. It sounds like I'm bigging myself up there, don't it? No, but he just caught the eye, is what I would say. And look, if Aston Villa were to somehow find a keeper of a very, very high standard who is on slightly lower wages, it might not be the worst thing in the world. Yes, Martinez would be a massive, massive loss. Yes, he would, and it would be painful to watch him playing for bloody Man United. But I'm kind of over it. There's a lot of noise, and I think when there's noise, sometimes it's better to just make that noise stop. So yeah, that's my thinking on it. Obviously, a lot of people disagree. Let me know what you think if you've got a different opinion. I see a few comments coming in. I will get to those in a second. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the players that I think are going to be gone next season. I do think. Now let's have a look. If I can remember how to work this, I think Emi Martinez is going to go. It's just my hunch. I think Alex Moreno probably gone. Illing Jr. probably on loan. I think there's a good chance. That Luca Dean goes, but for now I'll say he stays, just for now, but I think there's a good chance he goes. I think Dalkovic probably goes. I think Garcia and Cash probably stick around. I mean, God almighty, we've got what I would give to just to change that right back role. I mean, it's been 2 years now of that right back and right centre back area has needed something. And clearly Unai Emery himself knows it because he keeps changing players and putting centre backs at right back and fiddling around with it. But we've never, he always comes back to Cash, and Cash is a much better player than I think a lot of people think. But he's in that final third. Maybe he's under instruction to cut back and retain the ball. But I do think Andres Garcia looked a little bit more when he got to that final third, could do a bit more with it, is what I would say. So it'll be interesting to see this season. Towards the end of it, Ian Maatsen was starting to show what he was made of. Did get ahead of Luca Dean by the end of the season. I think Dean's better than Maatsen at certain things. Defensively, I would say, but I think Maatsen's also got attributes Dean doesn't have, particularly going forward. And then you would say Andres Garcia and Cash, it's maybe a little bit of a similar dynamic. One's better at certain things and one's better at the other. Neither are particularly perfect. I'm just going to say they probably both stick around. Onana and Tielemans. Onana's been linked heavily with Saudi. If Villa do get a bid of 60 million for Amadou Onana, they might take it, like Moussa Diaby. I wouldn't rule that out, but I'm going to say I think he stays. I'd be pretty surprised if he did go. Tielemans ain't going anywhere. I think he's probably become our most important player. John McGinn going nowhere. Boubacar Kamara. Now, if Villa get a 50, 60 million quid bid, yes, I could see it happening, but I don't think it will happen. I think fundamentally, Unai would like to keep that centre area pretty solid. And I think if we do, it really sets us up well for next season, because it just means that we can go on and do what we have to do, keep that consistency. We know how good these players are, and to have McGinn, Tielemans, Onana and Kamara as your options, there's not many midfields in world football that are as good as that. So I think he'd be very, very reluctant to lose any of them, to be honest, this summer. Because you then have to bring in a player who then has to learn the ropes again from scratch, and it's just hard to keep doing that. Lamar Bogard, I think, probably ends up being a PSR move. Branachea, I really would like to see him get a chance. Were Barkley to go and Branachea to stay, I'd be very happy with that. But I think Branachea probably goes. So I'm going to put him out. I'm going to say I think Ross Barkley, he's not on big wages. He did a solid job for us, I think, last season. I think he contributed some important goals. He's a handy player. We all know what his we all know what his strengths are. We all know what his frustrating aspects are. But I think to just have him there as that fifth midfielder, more as a sort of McGinn replacement, I think is fair enough. I don't mind it. So I think Barkley probably stays. He can also play a bit further forward as well, though. I've seen games where, he came on against Fulham and played further forward and he was absolutely bloody hopeless. So, funny player, Barkley. I think he's been miscast at times in his career as a player who's better further forward. I don't think he is. I think he's a deeper line player. I think he just is a little bit better when he's able to turn and have a little bit more space to pick out the passes. When he has his back to goal, I think sometimes it gets in his head. That's my theory on it. Don't count on what I'm saying. Just whatever. Jacob Ramsey now. A lot of talk about whether Jacob Ramsey might be on his way. I can see comments have been coming in. I will get to them, I promise. Jacob Ramsey, does he stay or does he go? If Villa get a 45 million bid, Jacob Ramsey goes. So what I think, who would bid that? I just don't know. I don't know who bids 45 million for Jacob Ramsey. I just don't. I think he's worth that to us. I don't know who he's worth that to for other clubs, because I've seen him linked with Newcastle, and I think, but what does he do at Newcastle? What, like, Newcastle have that flat trap bully role, and Ramsey can be a bit that. He is a bit that. He's very, he's physically strong. He's half turn. He'll run at you. He'll stampede, the Villa stampede, I call it. But is he? They like to play with wide left players like Gordon and Barnes. Where does Ramsey fit into that? Would they plan on putting him a little bit further back, maybe, in the centre midfield area, and doing a bit of a Joelinton role? If Joelinton he does get the injuries. So if Joelinton's out, maybe Ramsey goes into that role. I could see that. Tottenham, Johan Lang clearly likes him. Tottenham have been linked with him before. Under Thomas Frank, I don't really know what system they're going to have at Tottenham. I think he's not going to be as defensive as he was at Brentford. So who knows what sort of role he might function in if he went there. Obviously, I don't want to lose him. He's one of our own. But if Villa were to get a big bid for him of 45, I think, pure profit, I think they might be tempted. But Unai Emery likes Jacob Ramsey. He uses him a lot, and he's a very effective impact player. If you watch Ramsey when he comes on the pitch, particularly off the bench, every single time he comes off the bench, within 5 minutes of coming off the bench, he always finds himself at the byline and cuts it back. He always makes some kind of impact. And I think Ramsey was getting to a really, really elevated level where he looked like he was destined for the England team. And then he got that injury playing for the under-21s and has been out since. No, not out since. He lost a year, really. He barely played for the entire season after. This season, he's obviously been back a lot more, but he's not really, I'd say, had that run yet where he's looked like the transformative player he was at the start of Unai Emery's reign. On that left-hand side when Moreno and Ramsey were out there on the left with Mings in centre mid, they were the main reason I think Villa went on that massive run with Watkins as well. Watkins was fantastic. But I think they were so crucial to that run. And I don't think Ramsey's really been able to find that since. I think he can. I think Unai Emery believes he can as well. And I would love to watch him do it next season. I'm not saying I want Ramsey to go. I'm just saying I can see a world in which maybe Villa get a big bid, he does. But I'm going to say for now, he stays. Then we go out to the second striker role. Morgan Rogers is the only one we got there. Now, a lot of people want Morgan Rogers in the centre. Now, I'm going to get to it in a minute with the big controversial view I'm going to express in a minute, which might get me booed. I can hear like Hulk Hogan with that ear. I can hear the boos. Like Emi Martinez taking 20 minutes to take a goal kick at an away ground. Listen out for it in a minute, what I'm going to say. But Morgan Rogers, I think, I see why a lot of people want him in the centre. I don't think he's been brilliant in that second striker role. I just don't. And I understand why a lot of people might hate that opinion. And fair enough, if you disagree. I'm not saying I am correct. Other people may have opinions and data that prove I'm wrong. That's fair enough. But I think that what I look at when I've seen Rodgers, and this is largely off the eye test, and I always go back to the Chelsea away game that I was at last season. But what happens a lot with Rodgers in that role, he's a fantastic player. I know I love Rodgers. He's a potentially world-class player. He's fantastic. But a lot of the time in that position, the ball bounces off him. It just does. And then he tries to make that a pass that is a bit of a gamble because he wants to make things happen. And then we lose the ball and it comes straight back at us. And Chelsea away last season when we lost 3-0, Watkins and Rodgers simply could not hold the ball up. And Watkins has a real problem with this as well. Watkins is so inconsistent at holding the ball up back to goal as a striker. Now, Watkins is a fantastic... Again, I'm president of his fan club, and it sounds like I'm being negative here, doesn't it? But what I would say a weakness within those two in that central area is that there are games where when Watkins isn't at it, take, for instance, Man United away at the end of last season when he was absolutely useless, having been fantastic at Bournemouth away a couple of weeks before that and fantastic at home against Fulham. What can happen, Chelsea away, Watkins and Rodgers, when Rodgers is losing the ball in dangerous areas and Watkins is bouncing off him all the time, when you're not retaining the ball in that area, you're going to lose the game. You just are. Because if it keeps breaking down, your defensive midfield gets exhausted because they're going forward and then they're like, right, back into the defensive shape we go. And then mentally, they're thinking, well, I want to get the ball forward, but who am I going to get it forward to? Because none of them are going to hold it. So that is why I think Asensio went into that second striker role, and I think Rodgers went out right. Now, Rodgers, I think, did play really well outright, and I know a lot of people, again, disagree with that and think he was better in the centre. I actually think he did really well outright, and I actually think Rodgers, I don't think we know what his best position is yet. I think there's another team, let's say if he was playing for a team that is always dominating games and always the ascendant team, and always a proactive team, which Villa aren't always that team. I think in that second striker area, that central area, Rodgers could be consistently amazing because those gamble passes, it doesn't really matter if he loses the ball because of essentially, well, don't worry because the defensive midfield are so far forward, they'll high press and get on it and win the ball back and it's fine. But with Villa, that sometimes doesn't always work, which is why I think Asensio went into that role, because Asensio does just hold it up a little bit better in those half spaces and is just a little bit better at linking up. Rodgers is very young. He's obviously going to get better at it. But I think I do wonder, where is Rodgers' best position? And if I were to say Aston Villa right now, I think it's in that Ramsey left centre area. And I think it's out on the right. And I dare say there's a world in which I said this a year ago when he did this in pre-season. I think Rodgers could be the heir to Ollie Watkins. And I think there might be a manager out there who might one day sign Rodgers, for 100 million quid, or might come into Aston Villa, or it might be Unai Emery himself, or an England manager, whoever, who takes Rodgers, puts him into that centre forward role, and you then see his link-up play is unbelievable. He's really tall. His turn is amazing the way he gets away from players, and his finishing is actually really good. So I think Rodgers is still a bit of an enigma in a way because we don't fully know what his best role is. But all I'm saying here is the case as to why I think Asensio went into that second striker role ahead of Rodgers and Rodgers went out to the right. I love Morgan Rodgers. This is not me being Mr. Bloody Negative. Mr. Men, Mr. Happy, Mr. Sad, Mr. Round, Mr. Bloody Negative. I'm not being that. I'm just saying my theory on why I think Rodgers went out to the right and Asensio went into the centre. Now, will Villa re-sign Asensio and will they re-sign Rashford? Big wages. Big wages. Rashford, no, I don't think we will, because Man United have screwed themselves over royally with the wages they gave to Rashford a few years ago, 300 grand plus, whatever. Even if Villa were to play half of that, I mean, that's affordable for Aston Villa, but it's still a massive portion. And when you have to think of SCR for the Europa League, I just don't know if Villa can do it, unfortunately. I mean, I'd like to see him back. I do really rate him, but I don't think it happens. But that's not to say that were it to come to, early August and United haven't got rid of him, maybe United go, actually, we'll pay this amount of the wages, 200 grand a week, and you pay 100 grand a week. And Villa go, all right. I dare say there'll be a lot of clubs who'd be very tempted by that. Where's he going to go? Barcelona get linked with him a lot. I simply don't understand why Barcelona would sign Marcus Rashford. But Barcelona do a lot of things that make no sense to me. You've got Rafinha, Rafinha and Lamine Yamal are the two best players in world football right now. Or Vitinha at PSG, you could argue. Or Doué, maybe. But, I mean, Lionel Messi, obviously. But, Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, your wide areas are sorted. Why do you need to go and spend 60 million on Nico Williams? I get that. He's so young, so that makes sense for the future. But Marcus Rashford, why do you need Marcus Rashford at Barcelona? With their endless financial woes they have at Barcelona. But they do a lot of stuff that makes no sense to me. Signed Danny Olmo last year and they couldn't afford him. And couldn't register him. So whatever. But so I'm not saying he won't go to Barcelona, but I think as the end of the window approaches, there's going to be a lot of interest in Marcus Rashford. Aston Villa might be one of them, and if we get him, then great. I will take that. But do I think it happens? Probably not. Asensio, again, would PSG agree to a loan? Villa pay the majority of his wages? Yeah, I think so. I mean, what is it to PSG? I mean, they're now out there at the Club World Cup earning, more than the GDP of a lot of countries. They've just earned more than the GDP of a lot of countries in the Champions League. It means nothing to them to send him off on loan and take on a portion of his wages. Yeah, I could see a world in which Villa take him back. I could see it. But, then if a team comes in, like, let's say Fenerbahce in Turkey and bids 20 million for him, PSG might want it and go, yeah, we'll take that. And Villa might not be willing to spend what we have to spend and pay a full whack of the wages because, we've learnt the hard way with Coutinho, taking on these big wages for players who are probably past their peak. And will they be as useful in 3-4 years' time? That's a big old risk. And I'm not convinced it's one Villa should take. Because I think Villa have to learn the hard way from what happened with those contracts Christian Purslow and Steven Gerrard handed out a few years ago. Because we are now currently paying gigantic sums to Leander Dendoncker, Coutinho. Thank God we sold Danny Ings when we did. Robin Olsen was on a hefty packet. Luca Dean's on a huge packet. Again, I love Luca Dean. Of course, I'll never, ever not love Luca Dean. But still, a contract of what he's reportedly on for a left back who is very good strikes me as a mad sum for Villa to have paid at that time. With our revenues simply not going up to any kind of decent degree, which is where you do have to look at Chris Heck and think, compared to what we were doing under Purslow in the last year, Villa look like they're light years ahead. And there's going to be people rolling their eyes at that, but I don't really care if that makes it is an unpopular opinion. Villa, image-wise, are light years ahead of what we've been for years, and I just don't understand why we don't sometimes. I hate the ticket prices. I hate it. There's a lot of really not liked in the last year or two, but there's a lot of things that have definitely improved and are going in the right way, I think. Warehouse is going to be great, hopefully. But we'll see anyway. Well, whatever. I'm not going to get into all that. Anyway, that's the PSR hole we are now in. So where that relates to now is you look at Asensio, and I actually think Asensio is a very fit guy. He's never really been an injury-prone player. I think he's certainly got indications that he'll carry on a lot longer at the higher level than Coutinho did at the time we signed him. However, do I think it is a risk Villa can or should take right now without Champions League football? It probably is not, unfortunately. But if Villa were to sign him, particularly if it was for another year loan, I'd be delighted with the year loan. If we were to sign him on a long contract, I'd be happy in the sense I'm delighted to see Marco Asensio at Aston Villa, but I'd still have a bit of reticence in my head thinking, whoa, putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to get in Champions League for the next few years. But we'll see. I think, whatever. I think Villa are going in the right direction no matter what. I in my heart, I do genuinely believe that. So if you look at Villa's squad now, you think, right, well, where are the areas that need improvement? Well, I mean, as ever, God, I really do need to get used to using this again. It's identical to last season. We need a right centre-back and we need something done at right-back, I think. I don't want to keep seeing Ezri Konsa out of right-back, and I don't want to see Axel Disasi, if he comes back, out of right-back again. Axel Disasi playing at right-back against Manchester City cost us that game because he jumped in, and it's not Axel Disasi's fault. It's just the fact that he's not a right-back. So he's making a decision that maybe a Matty Cash wouldn't have made in that area. Because he's not a right-back. It's not really Disasi's fault. So I'll defend him there. And I think that there were at times last season where Konsa played right back and did well. There were times Bayern Munich, for instance, at home, Konsa was absolutely fantastic. Kingsley Coman's still trying to find his way out of his pocket. But I think that if you look at Konsa at right back, say at Brighton at home last season, which I watched live, I could visibly see how annoyed he was playing there against Mitoma. And again, I don't blame him. I'd be pretty annoyed if I was him as well because I'm not a right back. So I think Cash he's not overrated. I think he's underrated by certain people. I think he's solid. I think he does an industrious job. I do like the guy, but I think if Villa want to get to a consistent Champions League level, you look at what Liverpool are doing. They've just lost Trent to Real Madrid. Andy Robertson's now he's past his heyday. They've just signed Kirkes. They've just signed Jeremy Frimpong. You look at Man City. Why do they always spend millions upon millions on their fullbacks? Aston Villa have to look at our fullbacks and go, we've got to have, if we want to be at the top level, we have to have top level fullbacks. And I don't currently think we really do. But although at left back, I do like Matson and Dean. I think they're much stronger than what we have in the right area. But don't underestimate Cash. I think he's fine, but he's not elite. Garcia, from what I saw of him, I actually really liked him. I did. I just don't know really what his level is because we haven't seen enough of him really. But I theorise. I wonder if because he'll play a lot more in the Europa League. You'd think he'll get a lot more game time in the Premier League. You'd think if he sticks around. So maybe it follows a Matson trajectory, and maybe by the midway point of next season, Garcia's our starting right back. But it's certainly an area of Villa you think needs to do something. Goalkeeper, if Martinez is gone, we obviously need to do something there. And centre-back, a backup or competitor for Ezri Konsa, we need something. And I would love it if Villa were to find someone who is similar to Tyrone Mings. Vocal, loud, leader, kick someone in the bloody balls if they're not awake, right? If you were to say what is Konsa's weakness, there aren't many. He's a fantastic, I would argue, I truly believe he's a world-level talent. There's a reason England love him now. You can play across the back line, but you would say when Torres and Konsa play together in those centre-back areas, they don't have that Mings-style leadership. And sometimes, I know it's old school, but sometimes it's just what you need in a team. Someone to just grab you and say, Wake up. And I think with Konsa and Torres, sometimes that can be an issue. And I think if someone were to come in and compete with Konsa in the way Mings can with Torres, tall, physical, hard bastard type, I think that'd be a really good attribute for Villa to have. And obviously good on the ball. He's easier to find than done. I am going to do a scouting show later this week with good old Adam Tynan, so there'll be plenty on there to talk about. Anyway, now another area, right midfield. If Bailey goes, as I think he will, so I'll take him out of the team now, actually. Please work. Thank you. He's gone. So, well, it's blank now, isn't it? So Villa needs something out there. At the moment, you'd say Rodgers will fill that role. Left mid, we've only really got Ramsey and maybe Rodgers if Unai wants to stick him out there. It looks like we need something else. If Rashford doesn't come back, we need something else there, don't we? I've got a potential solution, which is what I think might get me booed off the screen in a second. And in that centre area, you could say Rodgers is the one there. But again, if Asensio ain't coming back, we don't really have anything there. Up front, we've got Watkins and Marlon. So that looks pretty safe. Right mid, you could say Marlon and Rodgers, but you want an out-and-out winger, don't you? You want an out-and-out winger. Villa need a winger of some description. And so you'd like to think Villa will do something there. So what is going to happen in that second striker area, left mid and right area? Someone versatile needs to come in there and do something. I'm sure there are a lot of players who are out there who our elite scouting system have been looking at, measuring up, and will probably go and buy, right? Villa are going to be active in July, very active, I think, because they have to be looking at that squad. But do I think there could be a player that late in the day joins us on loan? Because like Marcus Rashford has been put on ridiculous wages that the club don't want to pay anymore, and they are pretty much surplus to requirements at their club. Could it be, say, a Garnacho? Yes, I think I could see Garnacho coming to Villa on loan. I could actually see that happening. I actually wouldn't mind it at all. But there's another man up in Manchester, and he ain't at United, he's at City. And his name is Jack Grealish. Well, we meet again. I've been on the fence whether to put this forward. I don't know. 29 years of age. I think that's the same age as Asensio. Could we get Asensio for another loan and pay a portion of his wages for a year? Yes, I think so. But if Fenerbahce make a bid for him or another club make a bid for him, I think PSG will take it. I don't think Villa are going to bid to sign him on a long-term deal. So then we come to Jack Grealish. Like Rashford, he's in Neverland, really. He's on absurd wages, top 10 paid player in the Premier League. And is surplus to requirements of Manchester City. He's not been taken to the Club World Cup. It is goodbye, sayonara, thanks a lot, mate. Auf Wiedersehen. So where's he going to go? I've thought long and hard about this, and I simply do not know where Jack Grealish goes. Because what player are you going to get? Are you going to get the free? Is the freewheeler of Villa days still in there? Is that level of ability still there? And the answer is we just don't know. Is the Matty Cash style cutback king that we've seen at Man City, with all his interesting bits sawn off, as all Villa fans knew was going to happen, all his interesting parts cut off? Is that the player he is now and he can't shake it off? I think there's still probably some of the old magic in there. Probably. And that if he's allowed to be a bit more of a freewheeler, Just maybe if he has a run of 5 games where he does something that's a bit of the old magic, a great assist or a goal or something, maybe he refines that on a consistent basis. Now, Grealish can play in that left centre area, so he can do that. That solves that riddle. He could play in that second striker role and solves that riddle. And if he wanted to, he could even put him back in centre midfield and solve that issue. If we cannot get Asensio for whatever reason, he could be an alternative. Now, where's he going to go? I really don't know. I don't think he goes to Saudi. It just doesn't seem like the place for him. I don't think he goes to the US just yet. I think his career might end in the US at somewhere like Inter Miami, but I don't think that's where he goes just yet. Could he go to Italy? Seems to be a lot of English players go to Italy, and all of them seem to do pretty well out there. Yeah, I could see that. I could see him out at Napoli. I could see him out at Inter Milan, or AC Milan, Inter. Yeah, I could see him out there. I think he could have a nice old time of it, a lovely old job. And that might be what. And I think if I were to bet, I'd say that might be what happens. But if he's to go anywhere in the Premier League, Tottenham are linked with him, but maybe Frank wants him on loan. Maybe I could see that. Newcastle, I don't think they need him. So the likeliest team in the Premier League might be Villa. If a loan is a possibility, paying a portion of his wages and saying, come back and be a bit more of the freewheeler. So I think I'm not saying that I want it to happen. I'm not saying that I think it would work. But what I'm saying is I think I could see how he does solve some of the issues that this squad seems to currently have in its present state ahead of us buying a bunch of players in July. And, what's it like off the pitch with him? We don't know. Simply don't know what it's like. What's it like if he came back to Birmingham? Would that be the best thing for him? Don't know. Is it best to go back? Again, I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns here, a lot of risk. And what's his injury issues like? Because, we sort of forget this, but even at Villa, he did used to miss quite a lot of games. And if you were to pay hefty wages for him, yeah. But was it John Townley said it? Fantastic journalist John Townley said he thinks there's unfinished business potentially. Yeah, I think that's a fair way of putting it. I think I could see a world in which Jack Grealish answers some of the issues, comes in next season and actually refines some of the old magic and has a great little swan song at Villa. I can see that happening. I can also see the alternative happening where he comes in, he's injured a lot, and it just doesn't work. But I don't know. Unai Emery has a track record of working with older players and refining some of the old magic and getting them back to what they could be. And I think Jack Grealish is a prime candidate for that. It's just a big old risk, isn't it? Big old risk. But I thought I'd make the case. I'm not saying I want it to happen. I'm not saying I know for certain whether it worked. Who knows? No one knows for certain if it worked. But I sort of thought I'd make the case for why I think maybe answers some of the issues that we currently have. So that's that, really. I'll look at some of the players that Villa could go for with Adam later this week. But I think prime areas, that second, I think needs someone versatile to come in. I think we need 2 players at least to come in. And then right centre-back and the right-back role, just identical to last season. And, of course, a goalkeeper if Emi Martinez goes. It's really similar to last season. Anyway, I'll tie that off. I think I've said that before. Adieri, good to hear from you, mate. Hi, Newcastle United should sign James Trafford, Anthony Elanga and Joao Pedro for $225 million. Move deal now for Newcastle United now, Ray. Yeah, I mean, look, if they could sign all of them, then they're going places. Elanga is a player that I think Villa were interested in, from what I'm aware. 45 million quid. I think Elanga, he'd be in that Ramsey role, wouldn't he? If Ramsey were to go, Elanga's a player I'd keep an eye on. But would Villa be able to get him? Forest would charge a lot, and I'm not sure Villa can go that high, but we shall see. I don't really get where he again. It's funny with Newcastle. I'm not really sure where a lot of their players fit. Like Ramsey again. I'm not. Well, you got Barnes and you got Anthony Gordon, though. Aaron Morris, I personally rate both Costa and Garcia, but we didn't see too much of them apart from a few times when both arrived at Villa. We still need to right back to them. But they're both young. I think we do need something ready-made in there. Something ready-made that the two of them can then work with and ease their way into the team. Tim Roberts, Frankie, great to see you back. Yeah, great to be back. Thank you very much, Tim. Please please subscribe. I've been going on nearly an hour now. Thank you for all those who are listening online as well. I'll put this out as an episode. It's very kind of you. I mean, Christ alive, listen to me talk for an hour. You deserve an award for that. Aaron Morris, it's strange with Emi Martinez wanting out of Villa so soon after signing a 5-year contract 12 months ago. But I like the look of Chevalier too. Yeah, he's very good player, Chevalier. I think with Martinez, is there some frustration about Villa's failings in the late stages of the cup competitions last season? Is there some frustrations at Villa not breaking through into the top 4 again? Yeah, probably. You know, he's a big winner, and he's getting on. He's not young. He's a bit like in the Ivan Toney situation. He got into the first team very late. I think unjustifiably so. He should have been in the first team a lot longer in the Premier League. So he is onto his last contract a lot later than a lot of people. So he might be thinking about that. Football careers are short. Footballers have to think differently to us. I don't hold it against him, actually. I really don't. I don't want him to go, but I can see a world in which it happens, and there's a lot of noise around it, and so I think maybe it is best for both parties that he does. Matson's going to have a big season. I agree with that. I think so. I think Aaron, like him a lot. Luke, great competition for left backs. Well, I'd tell Kamara if he won't commit to Villa and misses game time with injury. Yeah, I can't remember if it's a year or 2 years with Kamara left. I'd like to see at least another year out of Kamara. I think he's just so good. Difficult to get him onto a new contract with that Champions League because he's a Champions League player. Dean, interesting about Dean, whether he goes or not. 1 year left on his deal. Atletico linked, I think a Turkish club we linked maybe, and a lot of money for a player who's maybe not a starting fullback. We'll see. Look, Aaron, we should look at Enzo Baranachea in pre-season. A lot of people are raving about him. He looked good in pre-season. Argentina national squad can't be bad, can he? Yeah, I think is there just space for him in the centre midfield area? I'm not sure. He looks a great player. He looks a top talent. I think he probably will be here in pre-season. I think we'll probably see him a little bit. My hunch is that he's going to go just because of the space in midfield and the money he might generate. But if he were to stay, I'd be excited to see what he's about. I think he's certainly a good light-for-light replacement with Yuri Tielemans. He's not like Tielemans, but he's certainly closer to a Tielemans profile than Onana and Kamara are. Drew Thwaites. Hi, Frankie Percy. I don't believe we need to sell as badly as it's been made out, but we have to pray for the worst. Would you rather we sell Emi, Watkins, Ramsey, or Kamara if you had to? Oh, good question. Very spicy. I think, God. Wow. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Just with the noise around Emi, I don't want it to be that there's a strange relationship, slightly strained relations in the next year if that happens and he stays. So I might go Emi right now. As much as I don't want to lose a keeper, we've seen how difficult it is to replace goalkeepers. We've had a long time not finding a top keeper. I can see a case for selling all of them. Not all of them at the same time, God no, but certainly I can see a case if you were to sell one of them. I can see a case why that happens. I think were we to lose a player of the four, who do we lose that probably we lose the least? I mean, all of them we lose something, but maybe Ramsey just because it's pure profit, and I think probably is slightly more replaceable than the others. But I agree with you as well. I don't think things are as bad as it sounds. I don't think it is. I think we're all right. I agree. I think the PSR situation is overhyped. I think so, just with the noise going on, and I dare say I think Villa have it must have it sorted. I'd be very surprised if they don't. I've looked at it quite closely, and the figures just don't add up. We made good profit last 2 windows, you sell high revenue last year. Yeah, for sure. The revenue is a lot higher, and also don't forget the John Duran sale, and there might be a sale or two from last July, August, maybe. But the Duran sale was big. That had to be big, and the lack of noise at the moment makes you think, well, something's going on. Something must be all right, because I'm pretty sure we'd been doing what we were doing last season when we sold Louise and flying all over the world. Drew White, I think we would have sold by now. Yep, agree, mate. Maybe teams are waiting until we get desperate to June 30th. That's true. That could be a possibility. That's a negotiating tactic that other teams would be wise to do. But yes, numbers don't add up. We have multiple financial levers to pull still. Yeah. Women's team, that report, there's something to that. The noises I was hearing well before that report came out as well made me think, oh, now I've seen the report come out, I think, oh, okay. Something's going on. Aaron Morris, yeah, mate, no panic. Let's face it, PSRs are fast, but I'm very confident our people can navigate the rules. Villa's revenue last year was 310 million plus, and predicted next year 360 million. All right. Well, PSR is, I understand why it's in place. Obviously, you have to stop. No, it's because of nation states. But what it's done is stopping nation states coming in and just destroying football, which is good, which is why I ultimately support it. But at the same time, it's locked in a bunch of teams who are just arbitrarily in the right place at the right time and can. Tottenham are not a bigger club than Aston Villa, but were arbitrarily better at the time, or in a better moment than Villa were when the rules came in, and therefore have been able to stay up there. It is faster in that sense. Drew, I agree with you, Frankie. We shouldn't take the risk on Rashford or Asensio. Perhaps Europa League allows us to build more stability for the future. Maybe it does. Maybe. It's certainly competition you think Villa were going to get quite far in. I'd be surprised if we didn't. It's going to be very competitive, but certainly a chance. You'd think with some of the teams will play, certainly a chance to blood some of the youngsters who will get a lot more experience in a high-level competition. Great. Garcia is a good example of that. I'd be happy if we could bring young players in to add to experienced ones we've got and improve them. It's cheaper and there's more Morgan Rogers mould out there to spot. Yeah, there is. Yeah. There's not many Morgan Rogerses out there, but for sure we've seen from the Championship in recent years, Adam Wharton at Palace, Jared Bowen at West Ham, Morgan Rogers at the Villa. Quite a lot out there. I think, dare I say it, Jay Stansfield at Birmingham City, I think, is a player who's Premier League made. I think he'll be a Villa Premier League player eventually. And it'd be hilarious if Villa signed him. I'd actually be pretty happy about that because I think he's a very good player. And I think he'll be a Premier League player eventually. Bellingham's came out of the Championship as well. So there's talent down there, Loic Bardet starting for France national team now. It looks like time we need to compete with our other centre backs. Yes, Bardet, obviously we were after him. He chose to stay at Sevilla. It's difficult to go back in for players who've rejected you once. Were Villa to go back in now, we'd see, I guess. I should have a sip of water because I've been talking a lot. It solved the problem at the right centre-back area because then the competition you've got between Bardet and Conte, the French international and English international, fantastic. Is Bardet the big physical, muscle man that I want to see there? No, but he's certainly a top player, and he'd add a lot to Villa squad for sure. Aaron Morris, Grealish is 30 in September, too old now, but I'd rather have gone actual on loan to see what he brings. Grealish is on 260k per week at City. Villa shouldn't break away for anyone. Oh, believe me, Aaron, I agree with that. Should have probably made clear. I don't think Villa should sign Grealish. Like, no way should we sign him. But as a loan for a year, that is something I think could make some sense. But yeah, no, God, no, don't sign him. No way. No way. Garnacho on loan, I'd keep an eye on that. Again, United are going to have to sell him. I think United will want a fee and want to sell him. And I think there's teams out there like Atletico and Napoli who probably will come in and make a bid. But if no one does, if no one has that money, Villa fancy throwing a loan, a bid at them or taking him on loan, then yeah, I could see it. Stephen Bell, but my hunch is Garnacho will end up at. I don't see why he goes to Chelsea. That makes no sense. But I could see him at Atletico. Always seems to have money from somewhere, and maybe there. Stephen Bell, haven't we moved away from Jack? When we had him, he was a go-to player. We'd be on that. He's been a good player at Villa. Yeah, I agree with Stephen. I do think we've moved on. But I think what the argument I was trying to make, why he could work, is just on a year-long loan where he sort of does the Asensio role if we don't get Asensio. I think my preferred option is probably Asensio on loan for a year. But if that isn't possible, Grealish paying a portion of his wages on loan with a swan song, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. But yeah, it's a funny one. It's not. You can make a case either way. I would probably say no, don't do it. But I just sort of thought I'd lay out the case for why a year loan solving a few issues might work. And you never know. I think something like he might rise to it at certain moments in the Europa League and might be a player who adds something, something. We know he's got something, but yeah, interesting. Seeing Jack is coming back. We'll see. We want Jack. Even if he's injured, we still want Jack. So the ladies team to a parent company, so we don't really lose them. So I think the way it works is with Chelsea. I don't actually know who they've sold their women's team to. It's within the Chelsea umbrella, and I know that a portion of it is an investment from Ohanian, the Reddit owner or founder. Yeah, I mean, women's football is a money maker, isn't it? Now it's turning into one. It's certainly a growing sport, and the more visibility you have with your women's team getting to winning things and getting to Champions League finals and things like that, as Chelsea and Arsenal have been doing recently, the better it is for you as a club as a whole. And the great opportunities it provides to young girls and growing up who want to have dreams of becoming footballers, and therefore it improves the standard of women's football across the world. I think all Premier League teams should aim to have one, and maybe even should be mandated to do it. Yeah, I think so. I think I can see the logic behind if you're an investor and you look at women's football and think of the growth it can have and its separation from the men's team, and the sort of money they generate. Well, maybe there should be a separate investment opportunity, maybe. And so, somebody could come in and make a bid for a portion of the women's team, and that, therefore, if they bid, 10 million for 20% of the team, it gives a sense of what the fair value then is for the team, and maybe V Sports, whatever, buy it off. God, I don't know how it works. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, report has something to it. Aaron Morris, I thought we'd moved on from Jack. I think he's out of favourite City because of his life out of football. Everything changed at City after the treble celebration. I'll be proud of that. Yeah, something ain't been right there for a while. So the parent company could pay $5 million for the next team. I don't think we'd get away with that. Aaron Morris, would Emmy win more at the current Man United? No. I mean, well, as bad as Man United have been for a long time, they've just been in the Europa League final. They won the FA Cup last year and they won the League Cup before it. This is what Villa have to learn. You know, as much as we all mock Man United and how garbage they've been, they're still winning things, and we still go to Old Trafford and lose. They still didn't lose at Villa Park last season. You know, under Unai Emery, we've only beaten them once. You know, I mean, I don't understand. Eventually, the pull of United has to go. I don't see the appeal of them. They've been a graveyard for years now for team players. But maybe just, you know, they can always offer big wages, and that's enough for players to look at and go, oh, I'll take the big wages, and maybe finally I'm the player to turn Man United around. I mean, good luck with that. Fish rots from the head down there. And it's the Glazers. Until the Glazers go, I don't see how United go forward. Drew Thwaites will agree back perfect Villa system. We need a left winger. Only if you take a pay cut. Yep. Otherwise, Garnacho will be brilliant, or someone similar quality, not a project player. Yep. UEFA have rules too, which adds on additional set of rules to obey. Yeah, SCR. That is 32. So then Emmy would probably only bring in about 30 million. He's going to cost at least that for reduced repayment. Yeah, though, of course, we do lose those big wages, which counts to SCR. And the bonuses he'd probably be getting as well, because he's the world's number one. They'll have to be clever. Because Paul Welford, hi Frankie, I heard we were on the verge of selling the women's team. Wipe at PSR. Yep. It's noises I've been hearing for a while. Not from anyone at Villa actually. So not some source at Villa, not some secret source there, but I have heard this, and now that the report came out from Jacob Tanswell and Greg Everett, whether they do it next season within the next window, you know, counts to next season's PSR. That could be a possibility. We'll see. Ultimately, we'll only know on July 1st, won't we? Paul Welford, are we going to buy some? I also didn't have Emi Buendia in our squad list. Actually, did I? I think Buendia's day's done at Villa. I think he's going to be off to somewhere, Leeds United, maybe. Frankie, we're going to buy Bakayoko, who I did an interview about. We've been linked with him, so I thought I'd do an interview about him with Joe Baker, Dutch football expert. Are we going to buy him? Well, he certainly fits the mould of what we need. Right midfield or right winger. Good finisher, gets a lot of goals. Good number of assists. Could he make the jump? You know, he's been inconsistent this season. He was fantastic the season before. The nature of wingers, like Leon Bailey, as we saw with him, they can be inconsistent. That's a somewhat frustrating thing. We'll see. We'll see. I think he probably answers a lot of questions there. I certainly think if Villa got him, he'd be a really good signing, and he solved some problems for us, is what I would say. But Dutch League, you know, these links to Dutch League, my only reluctance with the Dutch League, there have been players come over and done really well from it. There have also been players come over it who really haven't. It's slightly risky, that league sometimes coming in from there. It's why I think a lot of the Dutch players who do come into the Premier League don't tend to come directly from the Netherlands. They quite often tend to come from Bundesliga, France, wherever. So a bit up in the air about it, but because I think there's a risk it could just be another Leon Bailey but Leon Bailey last season was clearly done. It's time to go, and it's a shame. But 3 out of 4 seasons he's not been up to it. One season he was one of the best attacking players in world football and one of the best players I've ever seen at Villa Park. It's just a shame he wasn't able to do that on a more consistent basis. Morris, I think Garnacho was bought from Atletico Madrid by United. Oh yeah, yeah, I think he was. You know, yeah, good memory. I'd forgotten that, but he was. Yeah, Come back to me now. Do you think he'd go back where he came from? His wages alone, is a Villa shirt ready to go? Yeah, I think he'd go back to Let's Go. And if I was to bet, I think that's where he's going to go. And I think or Napoli. They're the two teams I'd be most thinking he goes to. Chelsea linked again. I don't see why if they're signing Gittins, why do they need Garnacho? But Chelsea are weird and would do that. But could get late in the window. He needs to go. No one's making the bid that United want, and Villa come in and go, here's 40 million for him, and maybe he comes. I can see a world in which Garnacho does come to Villa. I could see it. A lot of people I know don't particularly think he's great. I actually think there's a very special player in there who just needs consistent game time and a club where he is centre of attention and plays all the time and can thrive. And I think Aston Villa would be a good place for him to do that. But yeah, I'm willing to be told I'm wrong on that. Truth Waits, you're a legend, Frankie. Oh, well, thank you so much. It is amazing that people are so nice on this podcast. Thank you so much. And people I meet in real life who come up and say how much they enjoy it. That's really appreciated as well. Please please subscribe. The subscriptions really help. I mean, I can't express enough how important it is to get subscriptions and 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify and following us on Facebook and Twitter and all those places, Blue Sky. It really, really helps because, oh my word, it'd be great to keep on growing this. Got some plans if I have the time. There's so many ideas I have in my head of what I know I can do with this podcast. Unfortunately, I just simply don't have the time to do it. But I am a cinematographer. I'm a filmmaker. I do videos all the time. I certainly want to bring more of that into what I do. So as a podcast, so I'm going to try my best to incorporate a bit more of that and try and make stuff a little bit more, involved, I guess. But yeah, I'm sitting here right now with a great big giant Ronin gimbal. If I can pick this up. You would not believe how heavy this bloody thing is. Use it a lot, but could not get it into a football stadium. It is big. Anyway, thank you. Matt C, Mr. Frankie, good to see you back. Thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate that. I've missed talking to everyone. It's been, been nice to have the time off from thinking about football, but missing it as well. Bakayoko sister lacking. Always risky buying from the Dutch league. Like, well, yeah, exactly. Agree, mate. I agree. Ed, good to hear from you, Ed. You're very kind to us here on this podcast. I've seen you say a lot of nice things to us. I think maybe on Twitter and Blue Sky as well. But many thanks to us, Frankie. Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you so much. And what do I have to say? But I don't know whether he's watching, but my dad, happy birthday to you. Big old age now. How did you make it to 50? Unbelievable. Well, fair play, mate. No, a bit older than that. Blues, he's a Blues fan, sadly. Tragedy. They gave him a present. I think there might be another present coming in this season. I think Blues are going to make a right good go of it for the top 6, at least in the Championship, sadly. But, Jay Stansfield might be giving him a few more presents this season. And my mum's birthday tomorrow. They were both born. The birthdays are both a day within each other. So happy birthday to my mum, who's a Villa fan, sister of Villa legend John Dean. So Villa through and through, she is. God only knows what you're thinking, marrying a Blues fan. God only knows. And then it's also their 40th wedding anniversary. This is how mad my parents are. Their birthdays are a day within each other. Me and my youngest sister, our birthdays are within 2 days of each other, midway through June as well. So June is mad. And then they chose to get married on my mum's birthday. It's the anniversary, their 40th wedding anniversary is tomorrow. And that is mad. Anyway, just a side quest into my life there. But it's happy birthday to the two of them and happy anniversary to them as well. Arshad, love bruv, love you too, mate. Love you too. Thank you so much, Steve. So quite nothing coming out of Villa Park. Never known like it is now, and I've been Villa for 50 years. All podcasts are doing best at Mo. Well done, great podcast. Thanks. Thanks, Steve. I absolutely love doing this. Villa's as exciting as I've ever known it, and we are on a really, really positive trajectory. We really are. Hour and 20. I know a lot of people listening. That's a lot for you to be listening to. God, please comment. This will be on YouTube as well. Please comment on there as well, and I'll try and get back to you, as I really try and always do. But thank you so much. I'll end it there. But good time to be a Villa fan. A lot going to happen in July, I think. We shall see what happens in the next few days with regards to PSR. But until then, keep the faith. Good things are coming for Villa. Good things are coming. Up the mighty